Joe presents TKO, together with 32 Red.
Welcome to round 21 of TKO here on Joe together with 32 Red. As you know by now, this is a podcast and YouTube show with you every Thursday. We are in Manchester this week, catching up on Carl as he nears the midway point of his training camp for a ring return on August the 10th in Philadelphia. We'll be out there in the US covering his camp, giving you an inside scoop on all the build up to his fight, including the fight night itself. Now, for those of you watching and listening over the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've had Heather Hardy, Lou DiBella podcast that we recorded while we were out in New York for Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz. But this is the first one that we've recorded since that shock defeat and Anthony Joshua losing his unified heavyweight titles. Carl and I will be having a chat about that. We'll be talking about the latest developments in the world of boxing this week and the last couple of weeks too, and seeing where Carl's at ahead of his ring return in August. So let's head in the gym and see what's happening. You might be able to hear the crack of the pads behind us. We're here in Manchester where Carl's hitting pads with Nigel Travis in the gym. A few people here, Tommy Coyle and his brother are here as well after his defeat in New York against Chris Algieri. Jamie Moore is watching on as well. And I've got to say, I haven't seen Carl for 3 weeks. We've done one podcast every week since the end of January. So this is the first time we've spent more than 3 weeks apart, and he looks considerably leaner than I saw him in New York. So clearly he's been working hard, clearly the diet's going well. And he's looking sharp on the pads. Quite warm in here as well, that's the other thing. It's been pretty muggy down south, but they keep this place deliberately quite warm. Sort of replicates the conditions that the fighters tend to experience on fight night. If you've ever been to a live fight, you'll know it's hot in the arena, and when you're in the ring under the lights, so I'm told, it's the next level of heat even then, so it's good for Carl to get used to training in this heat. You can see Jamie just talking to Carl about throwing the right hand, rolling under, so clearly anticipating a left hook counter, just making those first tactical adjustments and presumably putting together a game plan for an opponent. Now, we're getting rumours that they may have an opponent in the pipeline. Nothing's confirmed at all yet, and I don't think we're allowed to mention it, but I think they've honed in on someone that they believe they'll be fighting soon. So Carl will have been back contact sparring for the first time in about 6 months. So it'll be interesting to find out how that went, how he's feeling, and find out about how his weight is too. I'll have to look back at the previous episode to find out what his weight was. I think it was about 150 pounds, so it'll be interesting to see where he is in relation to his target weight, which would be 126 pounds, come the 10th of August. So what he's working on at the moment, just creating angles of attack with his feet. So he's coming in with a 1-2 straight, rolling under the left hook, stepping off to the side, and then going again in the second phase attack. It's really, really sharp. And obviously it's one thing looking sharp on the pads, another thing doing it in the ring, but it does look good. He's definitely sharpened up since we last saw him. Nigel's on the pads with Carl, and Jamie's sitting outside the ring watching. And that's quite interesting. I haven't actually seen that before. And it makes a lot of sense. You know, when you're in there with somebody, you can't necessarily see everything that's going on. But sitting, 10 feet away, you can see everything, but also you're close enough to give those instructions to the fighter.
Obviously, I mainly do the pad work with Carl, but a lot of the time we figured this out years ago with Tommy. We stumbled on it by mistake. When my leg was really bad, I was spending a lot of time outside the ring just sort of watching. So, my input was coming from outside really, but I picked up a lot of mistakes what Tommy was making by looking from the outside in. We ended up bringing it in as part of the thing but you don't always pick up on the mistakes they're making at the same time.
How do you feel?
I feel alright. Lungs are fine. A bit later.
Yeah.
Which is helping with sharpness, but mentally, physically, I think I'm where I need to be as well.
Good. Okay. We'll have a proper catch up with Carl in a minute when he's had a bit of a rest and we've sat him down. You would have heard, if you're listening to the podcast, that last round was pretty intense. So Nigel really pushing Carl, high intensity, power shots as well. So really trying to sap the energy from the tank and see where he's at. Wasn't even really blowing at the end of the round, and Tommy Coyle just said, I'm really impressed at your fitness. He said, because you'll never end up throwing that many shots in a fight. But Jamie said, well, you might if you end up fighting Josh Warrington. So, and I don't know, looking at the path that all the fighters are on, Carl's on this collision course, hopefully with Oscar Valdez if he gets past his opponent August the 10th. Warrington and Santa Cruz are trying to line up a unification with each other. So it could be the winner of Carl and Oscar Valdez fighting the winner of Santa Cruz and Warrington at some point next year, which should be unbelievable. And if Carl were to win potentially those 3 fights, what a comeback and what a story we have. We'd have a little party here as well.
I've been watching Valdez, he's a solid fighter, he can punch hard. The way to beat that, or combat it, is use that little half step, timing, speed, and Carl's got all that in abundance. I've always liked that fight for Carl, and I've no doubt it'll be a hard fight, but if Carl gets hit with one shot, what I'm saying to you is he can read his rhythm, he shouldn't get hit with a second one.
Right, okay.
Because there's that little space in between where it goes boom. And then for that second one, he's got to be gone. He's got to have that little half step out, and then he can come back. So that's why we've been working on phases there. So Carl going boom, changing that angle, boom, boom. Second phase, come out. Third phase, but never in that straight line right in front.
I know you won't be able to talk to me about an opponent for August the 10th yet until it's announced, but with Valdez in mind, have you tried to hone in on a few people that are stylistically are reasonably similar to him?
Well, we're looking at Mexican.
Obviously,
Mexicans are renowned for that. That toughness, that durability, that pace where they sort of come forward and they work the body. So yeah, we're looking along them lines because we're not going to get somebody exactly like Valdez, but we can sort of still employ the same sort of tactics where you can get against that sort of opposition.
Oh, cheers, mate. I'll let you get back to it. Well, that certainly narrows down the options of opponent. Probably looking at a kind of fringe world level Mexican, I would have thought, maybe somebody in the top 10. So, get yourselves on BoxRec and see who you fancy for it.
You're watching TKO, together with 32 Red.
In a few moments' time, I'm going to have a sit down with Carl. He's just finished training, catch up with him on how the session's gone, how the camp has gone so far. Remember, he's just approaching the halfway point of that August 10th return date in Philadelphia. But right now, here's Graham Swan and Charles Dagnall talking about what it means and the mentality required to be a top-flight cricket player. Have a look at this.
When you see players who are on a purple patch, a winning streak, all they'll play is with confidence. They'll never see the lake off the tee. They'll just see the hole. They'll never see the goalkeeper. They'll just see the back of the net. And as soon as you start questioning yourself, as soon as you start imagining the lake or imagining the keeper save it, all of a sudden your goals dry up or you're 3 over par. It's exactly the same in cricket.
That's why Graham played for England and I didn't, because all I see is lakes and goalkeepers when I was playing. That was just panic. Really? Absolute panic. Yeah, just doubt myself all the time.
One thing, to look at bowlers at the end of their mark, the massive thing. If you look at the Australian bowlers right now, they'll be turning around, their chests will be out, they'll be looking at the stumps, they'll be looking at how many slips they've got. You look, if a team are 100 for 1, you look at a bowler turn around at the end of his mark, he's looking at his field, he's going,
yeah.
Oh. And not once did we make the Sri Lankan bowlers turn around at the end of their mark and go, right, don't get over your head, do that. Because they were just looking at how to get people out.
So in the gym, Carl's finished his training session. Was that the first one you'd done today, or did you do something this morning?
No, it was my first session of another one later on, just whenever I feel like it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So when we came up here, the plan was to speak to Carl, have a little chat with Tommy Carl after his defeat in New York and see what his plans were going forward. It was going to be like a 5-minute chat, ended up being quite an emotional affair, and we've decided to clip it up as a separate interview because it's one you're going to want to watch in isolation, and we're going to put that out next week. So there'll be an exclusive with Tommy Coyle, and it's not an easy watch, and I think he's maybe come to a couple of realisations, but I guess as his friend and his stablemate, you want the best for him, don't you, in his health?
Yeah, of course I do. It was just, I didn't listen to everything you had to say there. I was finishing off my own session, I was in getting changed, but it seemed to be, it was real, pretty deep, and Tommy he's an open book and he says it as it is. But the bits that I heard, it seemed almost heartbreaking listening to it and watching it. But Tommy's a great guy, and he knows now at this stage he needs to do what's best for himself and for his family. Yeah.
Two of your boys have been in some unbelievable fights the last 3 weeks. Tommy was in that barn burner with Chris Algieri, and then Stephen Ward and Liam Conroy in a fight arguably that could be up for fight of the year.
Yeah, no, not arguably, definitely at least in contention for fight of the year. It was a quality fight. To be there and watch it, like I live with Stevie during camp. I see how dedicated he has to be. He's like a proper professional. He cuts no corners. he struggles so much to make light heavyweight. He has to be so dedicated and so disciplined, and he is. But to come back, he was hurt in that fight. You wouldn't have excused Steve Gray for jumping in and stopping the fight at a number of points there.
The way his head was snapping back.
Yeah, and he was hurt and he was down. He was cut badly, like it was gushing. Like this wasn't a cut with a little trickle of blood. It was gushing, and to come back and win is like, I spoke to you about it just on text message, and his form after he was hurt, like 15 seconds later, he's back up on his toes, and that shows you his resilience. It shows you his fitness levels, and it shows you how dedicated that he is. But that was a fight, and I text Stevie, and me and him always mess about, and we take the piss. But I says to him, do you know what, mate? That fight has given me inspiration to get back to the top. Just watching that, it was like real Rocky stuff. He got on the ring, so the referee's going to call their names out at the end, and the winner, Stephen Ward, he gets on his knees and screams. There's a photograph of it, and I seen it happening. The blood out of his cut, because of the blood pressure, and he shouted, it went
like a fountain, wasn't it?
Into the air, over his head, behind him. And I looked at my mate and said, did you see that? And he did see it. I was telling other people, no one else seen it, and they thought I was talking shit.
You sent me the picture,
The photograph, the blood shoots into it. I've never seen anything like it, but what a performance from the big man.
It's good for him because the public have finally got to see a little bit of what he's about, and they saw what Liam Conroy had to offer against Josh Boazzi.
Yeah.
We know he can punch. He was on like a 5 or 6 KO streak before the Boazzi fight against some really top contenders. So for Stevie, that's for him a real kind of announcement at light heavyweight.
Of course, it was a fight that no one really knew who was going to win going into it, and Stevie had to show up. But I felt like I was talking about Stevie a lot there, but Liam Conroy deserves a lot of credit for being in that fight and making it. It takes two to tango, as they say, a bit of a cliche, but it does, and he was part of one of the best fights that I've ever seen. But I think that win is something that Stevie Ward, that'll kind of propel his career, and that's you have to be involved in a fight like that to know, not only for everyone else to know, but you yourself, you need to be able to know that I can dig it out when I have to. You don't want to have to do it all the time, but if it comes to it and you have to dig deep, you can do it, and Stevie Ward certainly can.
We've basically been ringside for some unbelievable fights.
Yeah.
Katie Taylor and Delphine Pursoon, Tommy and Chris Algieri, Steve Ward, Liam Conroy. But I would be fair in saying Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz is one of the most gobsmacking things I've ever seen ringside. What about you?
Just never imagined it. Never imagined it. I thought, like everyone else, that it was a gimme. Not a gimme. I knew Ruiz can fight. I knew he's a quality fighter. But it almost looked comical when they touched gloves at the start. Is he he's 6'2", I think. I think he's more like 6 foot. Small, tubby, heavyweight. Josh is this big Adonis, like massive, proper athlete. And when he dropped him, I thought, right, it's only going to go one way. And I would really started well, but once he got dropped, I thought Josh was going to take over. But 30 seconds later, Joshua was on his backside. And credit to Andy Ruiz, it was an amazing performance. But also credit to Anthony Joshua, he's made absolutely zero excuses. We seen him in fight week. What I did notice in fight week is that he had a sty in his eye, which is normally an indication that someone's run down. He hasn't said anything. Everyone else is making the excuses for him, but there definitely something wasn't right.
Do you think the commercial commitments since the Vladimir Klitschko fight, they've grown every year, and his responsibilities have grown every year. Do you think that's taking a little bit more out of him than maybe he'd like to admit during fight weeks and in the build-up?
Potentially, it's something you'll have to look at. Also, I'm not in Joshua's camp, so I don't know how it goes and how they run it, but there was a photograph he took after the fight in the change rooms, and was there 25 people in the photograph, all team members.
How many do you have in yours?
I have me. I have the boys who are in the gym, but they're not really, they don't play a part in my team. I have Jamie, I have Nigel Travis, I have the cup man, and then I've got an S&C guy who works with me over here, a nutritionist as well. But that's it. But they're not even around me on fight week. So that's it. That's it really. just a lot of people, and it kind of, I don't know, it was something I was like, you know, do you need that many people around? Maybe he does, I don't know. But there is a lot of people in that camp.
Yeah. Speaking of the situation he's in now, then we know they've triggered the rematch clause. It's looking more and more likely they'll go back to New York, possibly late November. Andy Ruiz, as we know, is an Al Haymon fighter. So as it stands, Al Haymon has control of all 4 of those belts. That represents a big share of Eddie's sort of leverage in the US market, those 3 heavyweight belts that he had. Do you think they're in a position where they actually have no choice but to take this rematch and try and get those belts back?
Well, I haven't seen the contract, but I'm pretty sure that there's a rematch clause, like everyone's saying, was in the contract. I think that Joshua has to win the rematch. I think he will win a rematch if he's focused and fit and 100%. But if he doesn't, 2 defeats by Andy Ruiz, who's already been beaten by Joseph Parker, there's still big fights for him, but from being at the very top, the very pinnacle, the unified heavyweight champion, to being beaten by a guy who looks like Andy Ruiz, I don't really know where he goes after that.
We were just looking at the David Price, Tony Thompson one poster in this gym and just saying what an omen that was and what a day that was. Yeah. And I know it was at a different level because Pricey was on the way up, but ultimately 2 losses against a guy that everybody thought he could beat. And again, a guy visually that people looked at and thought he's not in the kind of shape that he could trouble someone of David Price's ability. And he lost twice, and his career has never really been the same since, if we're being honest.
That is heavyweight boxing, and things can change in a split second. These big guys can turn each other's lights out in a matter of seconds, and that's why it's exciting. But I am looking forward to an Anthony Joshua Andy Ruiz rematch. I think that credit to Joshua for going straight in to the rematch. I think that mentally he's going to need to be very strong. But I think if Joshua is on it, if Joshua is 100%, I think that he wins the fight.
Technically, what were the things you think were missing? What adjustments does he need to make ahead of the second fight?
Technically, I don't know. I think that he looked laboured. He looked like he was struggling to fight with a smaller opponent. He's used to some big guys, but Andy Ruiz was coming in at angles, rolling pretty well, and in his face. But I don't think technically he needs to change a lot. I think that someone of Joshua's height and his dimensions, I think he just needs to try and keep someone like Andy Ruiz on the end of a big ramrod, strong jab. Easier said than done, but I think it was just down. He looked like he gassed so much, and that's been a problem in the past where you've had to question his tank, and people say, you know, he's so muscular and it takes a lot of oxygen to keep him going. But I don't know, he looked like he gassed to me, but that again is an indication of how run down he was maybe going into the fight.
So 2 weeks after Joshua's loss, Tyson Fury goes and makes his kind of statement under the Top Rank banner in the United States. I know it wasn't, you know, a bona fide heavyweight opponent, but he did the business. And what did you think he looked?
He looked really good. He looked slick. For the movement that big lad has is for a heavyweight, for a big heavyweight, is unreal. And it was a joy to watch. There was a wee snippet floating around the social media channels and of him shoulder rolling and stuff off the ropes. He can do it all, the big lad. I think the thing is now with Fury, he's like the last sort of year and a half or however long he's been back, he's staying in the gym. He's not allowing himself to balloon up and get out of shape in between fights. So each fight he's improving because he's having a few days off and he's back in the gym and he's losing more weight and being in more shape for the next fight. So quality performance, and I think that the real problem for all the other heavyweights is that big lad is still getting better.
Let's talk about your plan. So when we last saw you in the gym was the week before New York, or was it the week before that? So it was either 4 or 5 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Essentially, you're now halfway through your camp. I think it's 44 or 45 days until fight night.
Yeah.
I think you weighed 152 when we saw you. What are you roughly now?
About 140.
Okay.
So right on track where I need to be. About a stone Well, maybe a little bit more, maybe 142.
You look considerably leaner.
Yeah, I do. I feel leaner, I feel sharper, I feel better, I feel fitter. But I suppose I should be feeling like that 5 weeks after the last time you'd seen me. So, but things are going good.
Sparring Sean McGoldrick, did I see?
I've done a little bit of sparring. I wanted to start sparring lighter guys at the start, and move my feet and move my head, try not to get hit too much. Not trying to load up, just working on speed. So I've been doing little bits of that.
It's nice to get in and just kind of feel like
being a boxer again.
Yeah,
you know, I've been out of the ring since December, long time, half a year, and I want to feel like what it's like to get a punch in the nose again. But things have been going pretty well.
So Chris McKenna reported that Valdez has said he's definitely staying at the weight for the remainder of this year, which I guess falls in line with the plans that you have. Is your opponent, and I've asked this to Jamie already, but somebody that you're trying to stylistically replicate roughly what you're going to get from Oscar Valdez? Therefore, are you looking at a Mexican opponent?
Yeah, we're looking at a Mexican opponent. There was a few mentioned. The guy, I can't say names yet until it gets over the line, but the guy that it looks like it's going to be isn't really that similar to Valdez, but similar enough, similar-ish. But it's about a win. It's about looking explosive and getting a win, a good win, and then thinking about Valdez after that. But right now, I've been pretty much promised, and it's nailed in that if I win this fight, I'll be fighting Oscar Valdez for a world title before the end of the year. But I need to win well, so I'm fully focused on the opponent that I can't mention yet. But once we get past him, then I'll be looking at Valdez.
Warrington and Santa Cruz have kind of been going back and forth, and hopefully we'll see them unify. Obviously Gary Russell's in the picture as well. It ultimately means that you could have essentially 2 fights, and then the winner of one fight is the winner of the other next year.
Essentially.
Who wins, in your opinion, out of Warrington and Santa Cruz?
Very hard fight to call. Really? I think I would leave it a little bit closer to the time before I make that decision. I think I have said Warrington in the past. I think it'll be a great fight, a cracking fight, but very, very, very hard one. If I say Warrington now, I bet you change my mind in 2 weeks, so it's one of them ones.
Obviously, it was hard for him to look good against someone as negative as Kid Galahad. I read the article you did in the paper at home about going over to meet a champion and taking the belt off them. It's a funny discussion, that, because obviously it's nowhere in the rules that you have to go and rip the belt off a champion. But you feel, as having someone who's been the champion, that if you're going to go and win a belt, you have to go and make a statement when you do.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that he done things. He put Galahad put Josh in the position where he could have unloaded. He could have been a bit more offensively minded, but he was just pot-shotting his way, holding on, real dirty. Probably should have been deducted points for holding. He got away with that, but I still give it to Josh Warrington. He was trying to make the fight. His aggression, although he was missing a lot, I think he was landing as much as Galahad, but he was trying to make the fight. People are comparing Galahad's performance to, a Pernell Whitaker or Willie Pep or Floyd Mayweather. It wasn't that. It wasn't a bad performance, but Kid Galahad's going to be an awkward night for anyone. The problem now is, where does he go? Doesn't sell a ticket. Difficult fight for people. No one really want to fight him. Promoters won't really care about him if he's not selling tickets.
It's a tough one, isn't it?
It's a tough one for him, yeah.
Yeah, it is. So how has camp been the last 4 weeks? Obviously, you're out in New York training, you've come back here. Do you feel you're progressing on track? You said you had like a little neck niggle the first week. That's all good now and everything?
No, it's all good. Listen, I'm just getting old and getting niggles here, there and everywhere, but that happens. It's just about how you deal with it and staying on top of things, doing lots of mobility work and seeing a physio pretty often. And yeah, that's just what you have to do at my old age. So, but things are going good. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling sharp. I feel like I'm starting to do what I can do in the gym. Like, I'm using my feet, I'm using my speed, being more reactive. And yeah, I'm happy at where I am at the minute.
So at what point did you have the discussion with Top Rank about the city you were going to be fighting in. Did you have any say, or did they just give you?
No, they gave me a few cities, and they said this is where it potentially will be. So Philadelphia was mentioned, Boston was mentioned, New York was mentioned, and Vegas was mentioned as well. So East Coast plus Vegas. Wow. So
why was Philly your preference? Or was it your preference?
It wasn't. I just said, look, I stay out of all that all the time, so it's absolutely nothing to do with me. Yeah. I just said, go ahead, just let me know when you've picked it. So they took over there, and they chose Philly. Large Irish contingent. Yep. I think the third largest Irish American population in the States. So we'll get a good crowd, and I think I'll bring a few numbers from back home as well.
It's the best fight city in America, isn't it?
Well, Rocky, isn't it? There's the steps.
Joe Frazier, Sonny Liston.
Joe Frazier. I was in Philly as well. Sonny Liston from Philly. Didn't know that.
I think he's in the Philadelphia Hall of Fame, so I might have made that up, but
okay. Well,
cut that out if I haven't.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's a city that's just draped in boxing history. I'm looking forward to it. I've been out there before as an amateur. I boxed in a club called Harrogate Boxing Club. Yeah. Jerry Story from Holy Family in Belfast used to bring a team. And it was great, just always good crack. We used to box in like the second day, and then as a 16-year-old, just go mess about in America for another week, which was unreal.
Yeah, did you win?
I did win. Can't remember the guy's name.
Gary Russell.
No, but I think he might have been called Garcia, and he was left hook happy, so it might have been Danny Garcia.
Oh,
no,
right.
I wasn't. I don't think it was. But John Joe Joyce, my friend, beat Danny Garcia while we were out there. I think someone else fought Gabe Rosado.
Well, he's a Philly fighter, isn't he?
Someone, I can't remember who it was.
He's a proper throwback fighter.
He is, but someone beat Gabe Rosado out there, but John Joe Joyce definitely beat him quite well, beat Danny Garcia on one of them shows.
Good man. Are you going to be sparring, have you got any plans to spar anyone in particular the next few weeks? Anyone you've contacted here? Or is that just changed?
No, Jamie will sort that, but we've got some in-house sparring that will suit the opponent that we've got. So, and then I'll look at another few guys as well, potentially bring them with us. A kid called Stephen Fulton, who I brought over for sparring as well. I think he's IBO champion now. Good fighter, quality, slick Philly fighter. He might be good work for me when I'm out there. So yeah, I've got plenty of options.
And when are you going to fly to Philly?
We go on the 18th of July, which I'll be out there for 3.5 weeks. Yeah. I like a good amount of time in the city that I'm going to be fighting, and I don't just want to get used to the time zone and my surroundings and just used to everything really. Always feel like a fighter is underprepared if they're going, traveling the 6-hour time difference and they're only going for 4 or 5 days. I don't think it's long enough, so I'll be going out there and I'll be fully prepared.
Just talking about that to somebody today about Andrew Selby going to Mexico and fighting on sort of 10 days notice for a world title and
that altitude,
that altitude, 2,500 feet above sea level. Yeah. He just signed with MTK as well.
Yeah, what a fighter, Andrew Selby. I think if that lad, screws his head on and dedicates himself properly, he beats them all. He's one of the most skilled fighters I've ever seen.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I'm looking forward to Philly, mate. We're going to be really, really good. So good luck with the rest of the camp. I imagine we'll see you probably in a couple of weeks' time, I would have thought, for the next podcast. We'll put Tommy Coyles out next week, as I said, so keep your eyes peeled for that. We will be heading to Philly with Carl for probably the last few days of his preparation. Hopefully we'll get a little bit of access on fight night as well, fingers crossed. But yeah, thanks very much for joining us. Another episode of TKO done and dusted. The fallout from Anthony Joshua covered, and of course we'll be covering it more as we get closer and closer to the rematch when it is announced. But thanks for your company again, and we'll catch you again in 7 days' time.
Good
to see you,
man.
You've been watching TKO on Joe, together with 32 Red.